I'm Ava, and the daughter my family trained to keep the peace and keep my head down. I work in medical billing, which means I live by receipts and proof. That habit saved me later. But it started with a single, public slap, Thanksgiving in Ohio. And I was lining up plates like muscle memory. Rick, my father, had a beer in one hand and his phone in the other. He filmed me folding napkins and posted it in 14 seconds. The caption said, "Look at this failure. She was always a servant." Britt laughed from the doorway, and Caleb smirked like it was a harmless joke. Diana, my mother, stared into the oven and pretended the turkey needed her full attention. No one looked at me. Not really. I set the last napkin down, picked up my purse, and walked out without a word. The door clicked behind me like a verdict. I didn't cry in the car, and I didn't call anyone. I drove to my Aunt Lucille's and sat at her kitchen table until the house stopped shaking inside my chest. I didn't argue, plead, or post a response. I just decided something simple and final. The servant they mocked was done serving. By sunrise, the cold outside matched the quiet inside me. Lucille was already brewing coffee when I opened my laptop at her kitchen counter. I logged into every account I had and started moving money. Line by line, number by number. The joint savings I'd once opened for family emergencies was drained in under 5 minutes and transferred into my private account. The total stared back at me, $21,364. Every dollar felt like proof that I existed outside of their need. I canceled the secondary cards tied to Britt and Caleb, froze the old accounts, and changed every password connected to my name. The process wasn't angry. It was mechanical, steady, like I was locking a door that should have been closed years ago. When the first buzz came from my phone, I didn't flinch. It was Britt, her name lighting the screen like static. "Why can't I withdraw $2,000 from your account?" No greeting. No apology. No mention of the night before. Just entitlement. Sharp and casual, like she was asking me to pass the salt. I stared at the message long enough for the words to blur. Then another came. "Are you serious? I need it today." I scrolled back through our history. A digital timeline of borrowed money, broken promises, and my quiet yeses. Each message felt like a receipt for every time I mistook usefulness for love. Lucille walked in, tying her robe tighter. She looked at the open laptop, the account screens, my shaking hands. She didn't ask what happened. She just said, "You don't owe them another second." Her words landed heavier than any insult my father ever threw. I nodded, half to her, half to myself, and hit the final confirmation key. It was the sound of freedom dressed as a mouse click. Outside, the November air cut clean through the quiet. By the time the sun broke through the blinds, my phone had filled with notifications, missed calls, group messages, demands. I silenced them all and laid the phone face down. For once, there was no panic in doing nothing. Just calm. I whispered it out loud. The words slow and certain. "I'm not your servant anymore." The house stayed still. And for the first time, so did I. 2 days after Thanksgiving, I opened my credit report out of habit, expecting nothing unusual. The screen loaded slower than usual, each bar crawling like a warning. When the results appeared, I felt my stomach drop. 2 credit cards in my name, one open with a balance of $2,400. Another closed with missed payments I'd never made. I printed everything, hole-punched the pages, and slid them into a folder labeled Proof. Lucille watched from across the table but didn't interrupt. "Marcus," Her husband leaned on the counter and said quietly, "Then you document it. All of it." His calmness steadied me in a way I didn't know I needed. The next morning, I sat in a cramped office that smelled like stale coffee and paperwork. Jasmine, the lawyer Lucille had recommended, listened without blinking. Her pen moved quickly. Building a checklist: file fraud reports, freeze credit, notify the bank, contact the bureaus, submit a federal complaint. Her tone wasn't sympathetic, it was procedural. That made it easier to breathe. By the afternoon, I was on the phone for hours, repeating the same story to different voices behind automated menus. Every confirmation number went into a spreadsheet. I'd spent years cleaning up other people's chaos. This time, I was cleaning mine. Each form filled, each line verified. Felt like reclaiming a piece of myself that had been traded away. That evening, I called a few relatives my father had borrowed money from on my behalf. Their voices went small when I told them the truth. Most has Saint Hunos. A few thousands. Believing I was in debt or sick, I wrote every name, every amount, every date. My notebook looked like an autopsy of trust. By nightfall, my phone buzzed again, this time from Brit. She'd created a group chat with Caleb and me. The first photo stopped me, cold, my old room torn apart. Drawers flipped. Mirror cracked. Captioned, "Cleaning day." Then Caleb added, "Should have taken your stuff." I didn't reply. Noah drove by later. Collected what was left: my laptop, passport, and a stack of letters, and texted, "Saved what I could." When he dropped them off, I added his photos to the folder. Evidence, not emotion. I knew how easily people like my father rewrote stories. So I gathered proof before he could Akkad. Hours later, a final email came through. "Your identity theft report has been received." I leaned back, staring at the glow of the screen. It wasn't victory. Not yet. But for the first time, the damage was on record. And that meant the truth had a place to live. 3 days later, an email arrived from an unfamiliar address with my father's name in the subject line. It was from his supervisor at the city utilities department. The message was short, professional, and unnervingly polite. "The Facebook video involving your family has been brought to our attention. Please confirm if the content is authentic." I stared at the screen for a long time before answering. I didn't need to add emotion or story. The truth spoke for itself. I replied with one-page factual, measured attaching a copy of the identity theft report and the fraud filings connected to Rick's name. I ended with one line: "This incident is part of an ongoing legal review regarding unauthorized financial activity." I didn't have to accuse him. The paper trail already did. That same day, I forwarded everything to Jasmine, who replied within minutes. "This strengthens your position," she wrote. "He'll lose credibility fast. Don't engage directly." Her confidence was surgical, cold, but precise. I followed every instruction she gave. By evening, Noah sent me a photo message that made my pulse spike. Rick had left his phone on the workbench at a local bar, and someone snapped a screen showing his messages with Paige, my mother's longtime friend. The texts were explicit, casual, and worse, they mentioned a paper fix that would keep Ava's credit usable. I didn't respond right away. I just saved every image to the folder marked proof. That night, I sat with Lucille and Marcus on their porch. Marcus said, "Affairs expose pride faster than truth ever could." Lucille looked at me, waiting to see if I'd make it public. I shook my head. "No, I'll keep it where it hurts most on record." The silence that followed felt like a pact. The next morning, Jasmine called with updates. She'd submitted my complaint packet directly to the department's ethics office, naming Rick only as a subject of concern. Her tone was neutral, but I could tell she understood the power of formality. Paper trails destroy reputations quietly. 2 days later, the fallout began. Rick was placed on administrative leave, pending review of unprofessional conduct and potential misuse of personal information. Britt texted me in all caps. "What did you do?" I didn't answer. The truth had been sitting in his hands the whole time. I'd only lifted it into daylight. That night, Diana texted for the first time since Thanksgiving. "There's something of yours I kept safe." She wrote, "No apology. No context." Just that single line. I didn't respond. I knew better than to trust silence dressed as kindness. The next phase wasn't about exposure anymore. It was about finishing what he started legally. Precisely. Without mercy. And I was ready. Noah showed up the next morning with a small cardboard box he'd picked up from my parents' house. He placed it on Lucille's table without saying much. Inside were old photos, a few receipts, and at the bottom, a savings booklet I hadn't seen in years. The balance once showed over $3,000, every dollar I'd saved from part-time jobs before college withdrawn, completely the week after my 21st birthday. My father's signature was scrawled across the line. I turned the page and found a folded letter tucked behind the cover. It was from my mother, Diana, written in her careful, looping handwriting. I only signed a small authorization form. It read, "I thought your father would replace it." It wasn't much. The words looked like an apology trying to hide behind excuses. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel shock anymore. Just the dull recognition of a pattern repeating itself. People always confessed when they thought confession would save them. I slid the booklet and letter into the same folder that held the fraud papers, labeling the new section, Savings, Age 21. Each piece of paper built the same picture they took. I gave. And when I stopped, I became the villain. When I met with Jasmine later that afternoon, she flipped through the documents in silence. "This letter is an admission," she said finally. "It confirms her role in the authorization. Civil liability. At minimum." Her tone never changed. Steady as a heartbeat. For the first time, the word mother felt like a legal term instead of a person. By evening, another message came from Britt. Furious and desperate. She'd tried to open a new credit card and been denied because of the fraud flag linked to the family name. "You ruined my life," she wrote. I stared at the text for a full minute before typing. I secured mine. Then I set the phone down and didn't look back. The ripple spread quickly. My father's department started internal audits after the ethics complaint. A coworker emailed me quietly, saying, "People are talking. They've seen the reports. Most of us support you." I didn't answer, but I saved the message anyway. Proof mattered more than comfort. That night, I sat at Lucille's window. The house dark, except for the streetlight spilling across my folder of evidence. For the first time, the truth wasn't buried under family loyalty, it was written in ink. And ink doesn't lie. 2 weeks later, the investigation at the City Utilities Department reached its conclusion. Rick was formally terminated for unprofessional conduct and misuse of personal information. The report didn't name me, but everyone knew. His badge was deactivated. His reputation stripped clean in the same quiet, procedural tone he'd once used to humiliate me. At the same time, the bank completed its internal audit. The calls made to activate both fraudulent credit cards came from Rick's phone number, and the delivery address matched his home. One customer service recording captured him pretending to be me, stumbling over my middle name before hanging up. I printed the transcript and added it to the binder marked Proof, Final. Jasmine sent the entire case package to the State Fraud Division. Her email was simple: all documentation verified. Civil and criminal thresholds met. Reading those words didn't feel like victory, it felt like balance. Every document, every timestamp, every screenshot had built a wall of truth, too solid for charm or denial to climb. Diana filed for divorce soon after Rick's dismissal, citing financial deceit and emotional abuse. Her lawyer contacted Jasmine about a settlement, but I told her to keep it formal. I didn't owe forgiveness in exchange for regret. Britt went silent after her last message. Blocked by credit restrictions she couldn't talk her way out of. That night, he sat at Lucille's table again, the same one where this all began. I closed the binder and pressed my palm over the cover. The weight felt final, not heavy. From now on, I whispered, only the truth gets to sign my name. Rick lost everything faster than I expected. The job he worshipped, the reputation he bragged about, the family he thought he controlled, all gone within a month. Paige disappeared once the investigation became public, leaving his name attached to both scandal and debt. For a man who lived on pride, silence became his punishment. Diana accepted the divorce and repaid part of the stolen savings through settlement. She asked to meet, but I declined. Some apologies only serve the speaker. I wanted peace, not closure. Britt faded from the internet after her accounts were flagged for fraud. Caleb sent one short text. You were right then, deleted the group chat. There were no heroes left in that house. Only consequences. By spring, my savings reached nearly $30,000. I rented a small apartment by the river, unpacked slowly, and slept without checking my phone. They once said I was born to serve. They were right now. I serve justice. Thank you for watching until the very end. If this story spoke to you, please subscribe so you never miss what comes next. And if you carry a story of your own, I invite you to share it in the comments. Your voice matters here, always.